Hey, what's up, guys? Tugi here, back again with another episode of my Montreal Canadiens franchise mode series right here on NHL 18. And today, we begin the sim on a new season. Now, for those of you who might not have watched the entirety of the last episode, number one, I completely understand. I never expected it to be a 2-hour marathon, but we finally pulled the trigger and gave up on the Marc Bergevin era Habs. We made it to the Cup final once, and from there, it was disappointment after disappointment, and now we have turned the page, and we're looking to rebuild. We've already started that rebuild, and the goal, as always, is to win a cup. I don't want to walk away from the series without having brought at least one cup to Montreal. Now, this, of course, is the team as we left it at the end of the last episode. New recruits such as Kirk Cunning, Edward Cizik, and that's basically it. Jonas Simmons as well, who we acquired. But for the most part, I mean, Drouin, Puljujärvi, Farabee, Norris, Garlock, Heinoke, Conklin, Philip Deneau, all players that were on this team, or at least, in this, within this organization last year. So we are still relying on quite a few players that we had to begin with. The defense is a little bit different, of course, with the additions of Lucic, Makar, and Franzen. But Hughes and Juleson were players with us last year, and Norm Jenks was a standout in Laval over the past few seasons, and he's finally made it to the NHL level. The goaltender, of course, is Spike Richmond. The goaltending is completely different. I'm not going to sit here all episode and try to justify how I approach things, right? Some people are happy with the way I chose to rebuild this team. Some people are not. And that's all well and good. It is literally impossible to appease all of you. Nor do I try to, because I know that's impossible. I've gone through the comments as much as I've been able to over the past day since that episode's come out. I've responded to as many of you as I can, addressing certain things, whether it's why I don't sign players to entry-level deals. Like when we were going through and filling up the AHL roster, I forgot to set up scouting. Well, that sucks. We just lost a week. But when it comes to not signing players to 3-year entry-level deals off the free agent, off the free agent market like we could have, don't want to do that because I don't want to get stuck with them. By getting stuck with them, I mean, I know they're not going to progress. So basically, I'm just going to trade them into more picks. And then the same people, or at least some of the same people, will be like, oh, well, now you're pick hoarding again. See what I mean about it being impossible to appease everybody? So I can't try to, right? At the end of the day, the goal of this series is to have a little bit of fun and to try and win cups. That's the whole point of the mode. So that's what we're continuing to do. Everything I do with this team, did it for a reason. It was also, I forgot to set up scouting again. There was also a lot of concerns. Again, I'm not going to spend the entire episode. Episode? I don't know what an episode is. I'm definitely not going to spend the entire episode justifying all of my decisions. I'm going to leave all of that for basically the comment section of the last video and this video. If there's anything I do in this video that you might not understand my reasoning for, ask me. Like I said, I read the comments. I can't always reply because, again, I'm balancing making videos, streaming every night, typically for 5+ hours, and just life in general. So I don't always have as much time as I'd like to respond to every comment, but there was a couple where it's like, I mean, there was one in particular that you know who you are. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not naming your account name. I'm too lazy to look. But we had the back and forth about not developing prospects in this series yet. Farabee. I mean, did we draft Farabee? No, we didn't. If that's the point about we didn't draft prospects, fair play. However, how many guys did I keep on that AHL team? Will Bitten, Eichenen, so many others. It doesn't always work out. We are developing prospects. They're just not the prospects that we drafted. But again, I'm done with that. We're focusing on moving forward and making this team a winner. This season, 0 expectations. We still do have a contenders team status. I don't necessarily expect us to make the playoffs. If we do, awesome. If we don't, whatever. We have quite a few draft picks heading in to next season, or, at the end of the season, heading into the next season with the draft, as we lost a player on Laval, which literally doesn't matter. Again, for those of you who didn't make it through the entire episode, we don't have a single prospect on the Laval Rocket, and we just lost Spike Richmond for 2 months. Well, Mike Condon, step on up, buddy, because you're our goalie. Wow. All right, we'll call up Joseph Wall. You want to talk about the worst possible start to a season? Losing our starting goalie for the future in the first game is probably the worst possible situation. Wow, I cannot believe that just happened. But it did. Now we'll move forward. Wow. Okay, in fairness, it was the third game of the year. I thought the 2 Buffalo games are preseason. They weren't. I completely lost my train of thought. Have no idea what I was talking about. So we'll just focus on how this team is doing. Oh, that's right. I was talking about draft picks. We're going to have to rebuild the Laval Rocket basically from the ground up with whatever prospects we are able to draft. Now, of course, I could segue into the whole developing prospects thing yet again, but it's cool. It's cool. We'll do what we have to do. My God, EA, please. Cut me some slack, man. This could be a brutal season for us. It could be. This could be brutal. We'll call up Mark McNeil, I guess. Literally for no reason other than why not? Why not? And we'll put him in on the 4th line. I'm interested to see how certain players progress throughout the year. Of course, we have a lot of young talent on this team now. Let's just go best lines. So you get a look at the Laval Rocket. Not a single one of these players we are keeping beyond this year, basically. It's that's right. I was gonna put in Rumble. Oh well, whatever. I don't want to sit there and keep editing the AHL lines because it's irrelevant. We just lost Cale Makar to injury as well. Damn. Well, maybe this is a sign from the EA gods that they're not too happy about how I set up this team in the last episode. Maybe that's what this is. I don't know. Jesus. All right, let's just put Colton White in the lineup. He's not out for too long. Nah, you know what? Best lines. Screw it. We'll swap these guys around. There we go. Team's looking better. Not sure how the power play units are going to look at this point, but we'll keep on moving forward. It's so weird. I'm in such a weird, spot for this episode as we're 5-7-1 at the end of the opening month. I can't really be too surprised. I'm just going to try to sim a month at a time. I'm in such an interesting spot because, as I mentioned, my love for the team and how we had it set up. Yeah, it sucks to have finally given up. It sucks to not currently have Gallagher and Pacioretty and Carey Price on this team. It's a little bit weird. It kind of sucks. I didn't want to give up on that core, but we had to. Carey Price is, 35 years old? Look for Tampa to win the Stanley Cup this year, now that that's who we traded him to. I still don't even know if he'll be the backup. I do wonder if he regressed a little bit more and is now an 88 overall with Andrei Vasilevsky. My God, the goaltending on that team, Price and Vasilevsky, that is insane. Absolutely insane. God, am I going to scout goaltenders? It sucks because I don't really know what to talk about with this episode, aside from just seeing how the team does and just kind of, harping on the same things. What is there to talk about after you make such major changes to the team and how you're choosing to progress through the rest of a season after doing what we did in the last episode? It was literally a 2-hour deconstruction of the Montreal Canadiens as we knew them throughout the course of this entire series. It's jarring, for sure. We're 13-11-1 through the first 2 months. The Laval Rocket are struggling as well. We'll be getting back Spike Richmond in a moment. I do wonder, I made the mistake in the last episode. I wonder how many times I'm going to confuse Spike Richmond and Spike Rowe of the Hartford series throughout the course of this. Quite a bit, I would assume. See if we can send down Joseph Wall, Colton White, and McNeil. If any of them get claimed, it's hardly a disaster for us anyway. We'll go best Lions yet again. Simmons is up to a 77. Of course, he's a rookie, so his development is kind of crucial. Norris and Farabee have yet to really progress, which is pretty scary. Franzen, though, up to an 80 already. Jared Franzen, we acquired him from the Bruins. So far, so good, and he's still on an entry-level deal, so he could do extremely well for us moving forward. Let me go back to the NHL. We'll take a look at some stats. Richmond did well in the 3 games he played. Condon, in fairness, didn't do too bad. We'll take a look at the defensive stats as well. Patrick Lucic, my God, 20 assists. That is ridiculous. You could argue setting him up as an offensive defenseman because of the 92 awareness. He's still putting up points regardless, though. He's got a good shot, but he's really decent defensively. So that's why we have him set up as a 2-way. Cale Makar, 9 goals, 1 assist. Not too bad. Quentin Hughes, 3 goals, 11 assists. He's -2. Noah Juleson, actually, you know what? They're not doing as well together as I would have expected. I wanted to keep the 2 offensive defensemen away from one another, but maybe it's worth having them on the same line. Wow, that top line. Whew, boy, that top line is struggling. Jonathan Drouin with 12 points, 11 points for Cunning. 12 points for Cunning, I'm sorry, he's a -10. And Jesse Puljujarvi with 9 points. We'll keep them together for now, but for how much longer, I'm not sure. This ridiculous overhaul of the Habs might not be done, which is a really scary thought because, again, we're in 2023, going into 2024. My God, it's not that I'm not enjoying the series. It's just I'm shocked that we're in this point. That we're in this situation. I remember some people saying like, "Oh, how are you surprised that you didn't find success with the Habs team? Look at this weakness and this weakness." But then you look at what we just did with Hartford when we won the Cup. Spoiler alert, we won the Cup in the Hartford series. If you're not following along with that series, you totally should. But you look at that team, that Hartford team is a hell of a lot weaker than this Habs team was. Again, there's no secret formula. There is no Krabby Patty secret formula when it comes to building a team and finding a way to win. And I've pointed back to rebuilding Hockeytown with some of the teams we had. My God, and we'd still lose in the first round after winning 60 games. And it just sucks to be at this point. I didn't want to be at this point without having a cup. I feel like I failed. We did fail. We didn't win with Carey. We didn't win with Gallagher, Pacioretty, Galchenyuk, who we had to give up on early because he wanted out, and he was right to do so. I guess we'll keep going towards the deadline. We're not going to make any moves until the deadline. You know me. I don't like making moves at the deadline at all. If I'm going to make trades, I'd prefer it to be at the draft so we know. Actually, I'd prefer it to really be, not for picks whatsoever because of how inconsistent the draft is. And that goes back into the whole topic of discussion of getting 50 overall players and not being all that confident in them developing. It can happen, but it's a rarity, and very, very rarely does a 50 overall player, when you draft them, turn into somebody who's actually a genuine difference maker. Can they make the bottom 6? Sure. Are they often a genuine difference maker? No. So that puts me in a really tough spot with how to run the series. Where do I just go for the draft and hope that we succeed, knowing that there's a really good chance that we don't? Or do I do what we did, say, in the last episode and just go out and get these players that I know will actually be difference makers on our team? It's a fine line. And without defining, without setting out the rules and guidelines of the series at the start, saying, no, you have to, if you want to get a big-time player, you have to trade for them and stuff like that. Without actually doing that, it leaves me in like a balancing act between doing what I know I should do to be successful or trying to appease certain parts of the audience. Regardless, focusing on what's happened this season, we're currently in a playoff spot. We are currently third in the division with 62 points, 10 points ahead of Tampa, although they do have a game in hand. That is ridiculous, considering this fucking chair. I'm sure it's picking up on the mic, too. I love it. I need a new chair. Despite not having Spike Richmond for a decent portion of the season, with 32 games to go, we're only 7 points back of Detroit for the top spot in the division, and our leading scorer is a defenseman. You just never know, do you? We'll take a look. Jonathan Drouin, 31 points. He's a minus 12, though. That's not good. Cunning's up to 7 goals, 26 assists. That top line's just not gelling, and Puljujarvi is... I've given Jesse Puljujarvi every chance to bounce back. 71 points, bit of a disaster, 67 points last year. Actually, the 49 points was in 57 games. So he had 2 really good seasons. Last season was disappointing. This season is an outright disaster. It's just he was marked for death when he put up no points in 9 games after having 49 points in 57 games that same season. Take a look at the second line. Farabee's up to an 82. Currently 16 goals, 19 assists, 35 points in 50 games. That's not too bad. Norris, struggling as a playmaker. Could change him over to a sniper. Edward Cizik isn't exactly killing it. I'm shocked he's still only a third-line guy. 17 points. Garlock's killing it. Third line's doing okay in general. Yeah, that's tough to think of how to progress here. And it's it's such a similar spot we find ourselves in, where it's clear we have some underperforming players, but we're in a playoff spot. So what do we do? Do we finally give up on Jonathan Drouin? Do we completely blame Puljujarvi for that line struggling? Cizik would be better on the third line, but who would we get rid of? Nobody, because Cizik's going to be a second line guy very soon. So there's really no point in making that move. I'm shocked he's an 85. That doesn't make any sense. 85 and up is supposed to be a first-line player, so that must not be... it just must not be natural growth. It must be statistical growth. How are we winning? Like, really, how are we winning right now? Lucic is killing it. Julesen's doing all right. Makar and Hughes, they're doing okay. I'm shocked that they're not minus players. Holy God. Jared Franzen's up to a top 4 player already, and he's starting to complain about ice time. This goddamn chair. I don't expect... he's already complaining about ice time. Holy hell. We already have decisions to make with this team. Spike Richmond's killing it. The worst part is Spike Richmond. That's not very kind of you, EA, to have it work out that way. Not that I needed to go out and acquire both players. What do we do with this team? What do we do? I'd say the logical thing would be get rid of Cale Makar, who's not going to improve at this point at 25 years old, but offensive defenseman, 2 defensive D-men. So then we find Jenks we still have Jenks, and then we just go ahead and find whoever to play on that third unit. Because as it stands, again, I'd rather keep Julesen as a defensive D-man. Cale Makar is fine. Oh, then again, Cale Makar is not bad defensively. So, Franzen stays, so it's between Julesen and Makar. Makar is decent defensively. Julesen is slightly better in defensive awareness, literally 1 point better. Kills it in shot blocking. It's a lot more physical. How do we progress? I guess it's just a matter of, do I try and keep everybody happy on this team as well? We could try that and have Makar on the third pairing with Jenks, just to see if he complains. Simmons is up to an 81 already. I didn't even notice. Yeah, we have decisions to make. We have underperforming players. We have other players who are progressing at an astonishing rate when it comes to overall. I'd say right now, trade Puljujarvi. Simmons is going to be a second-line guy before you know it. I'd say that's probably the way to go. And then we'll see if Jonathan Drouin can kind of salvage things over the month of March. I think we're in March. No, we're in February right now, heading into March. And if he can't get it together, then he's gone. So then we find a prospect to trade for when it comes to Puljujarvi, or we risk it for a draft pick. We could trade for not that we want to risk it on the lottery system, though. Especially, too, if you've watched me on Twitch, you know how inconsistent the lottery system is. So I'd say Jesse Puljujarvi's time here is done. We have Isaac, Simmons, and Conklin. We're good. Centers. I got to be honest with you. I wouldn't be opposed to putting Farabee on the top line and having this be the team. Farabee, Cunning, Isaac, Garlock, Norris, Simmons, Heinout, Deneau, Conklin, and then trade Drouin and Puljujarvi for great prospects and find a couple of plugs for the fourth line just for the season. In defense, we'll see over the month of February how it goes and whether or not we can keep Cale Makar or Juleson happy on the third pair. If we can't, then one of them has to go. But as it stands right now, defensive D-man with a more offensive-oriented guy. Defensive D-man with a more offensive-oriented guy. Same thing on all three pairings. That's a great setup for the team if we can just keep Cale Makar happy, which he does have top power play time with Lucic, who's killing it. So I think Jonathan Drouin and Puljujarvi have to go. We'll end this episode right around here because I want to consult with you guys, of course. I want to see what you think, but despite the fact that we're in a playoff spot, 62 points, that's the right move to make, at least in my opinion. It might cost us a playoff spot, but the youth is here, the youth is taking over. Say what you want, but there's really no excuse for those two guys to be struggling. Drouin still has decent value. The big problem with him is we signed him for 1 year at $15 million just to get him back, so I don't know if he's tradable. Puljujarvi's definitely tradable. 25 years old, has great trade value, 1 year left, expiring deal. We're certainly not going to want to pay him more for how he's been performing. So I guess it's just a matter of who could we pick up? What prospects could we look to poach from other teams? I still have that list of players, although I'm not sure if they are still there. Let me grab this piece of paper here. Where is the one with the list of players? There it is. Enjoy the fine sound of paper, fiddling. So we still have some top-notch players that we could go after. Some of you are opposed to that, I'm sure. But even starting on Washington, you have Pushkarev, 87 overall, 21 years old. Might not be ideal, actually. He'd be pretty good for the top line, I'm sure. He's a second liner currently. But when you look at our team and the proposed lines that I've set us up with, if we get somebody as good as Pushkarev, how long is that going to last? That's a temporary fix. I guess really the big question is how much faith do we have in Farabee and Norris at this point? I'd say right now the best idea, the best plan would be to go out and get, like I mentioned, legitimate prospects under 75 overall who are going to be a year or two away, and also pick up draft picks in return. That way we get somebody back guaranteed. We also get a draft pick that could end up being our own homegrown talent if it's a big enough hit, and not somebody who, 55 overall probably won't make it. If I'm not mistaken, Jääskeläinen might have been a 55. He ended up being an 83. Third line player, not bad. Was Jääskeläinen going to be a major game changer? Probably not. And even then, we would have had to choose between Conklin, Garlock, Heinout. I don't know. I'm not going to go on. Not going to keep harping on the same subjects. We did what we did. This team is what it is. Now we need to get it into a winning spot. We need to win a cup. That's the goal. I don't want to end the series until we win at least one. So when looking at players that fit the bill of what I'm talking about, on Vegas, we have Blacker, who's a 72 overall, 19 years old. Tommy Blacker, former 4th overall selection. He is a possibility. We'll go all the way to Detroit, where they have a guy named Hartnell, who is a 73 at 18 years old, a former 5th overall selection. Looking pretty damn good as a power forward. And on Arizona, although it's not as ideal because he's top 6, you have Hall, who's a 74 at 21. So I'd say Hartnell on Detroit and Blacker on Vegas are the best 2 targets. We could get at least one of them by using Puljujarvi. And then when it comes to whatever 4th liners we want to sign, I can find somebody for cheap to trade for, or we can check the free agent list really quick. I'm sure there's still somebody there who's worth giving that spot to. Oh yeah, I mean we could find somebody. Austin Watson, who's had success. Nick Krediles, who we've used before. There are 4th liners. Hell, we could bring back Arturi Lehkonen if we wanted to and just not play him on the 3rd line. There are options. I know how I'd approach things. But now it's time for you guys to tell me how you would approach things. Again, I wouldn't have taken those, that massive step forward that we did in the last episode if it wasn't for a lot of the things you guys have been saying leading up to that point. And then we finally hit the breaking point of losing in the postseason yet again. This year, despite having some major flaws in our team, we're winning, but I'm willing to sacrifice this season because, let's be honest, we're more than likely not going to succeed in the first year of this retooling. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, any, response to the episode or last episode, I'm in the comments section, looking around, always willing to discuss and just let you guys kind of know, here's why I did this, here are my thoughts on this, and why I do things in a certain way when I might not be able to address all of that throughout the course of an episode. Like I mentioned, I hope you did enjoy. Feel free to support the video on the channel in any way you deem necessary beyond just watching, which I thank you very much for doing just that. Have a good one. Take it easy. I'll catch you later.